What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Nick, this is Flam Motorsports. The other day I put a poll on the Instagram page asking who wanted to see a part layout for all the parts that we got going into the engine, transmission, fuel build coming this winter. Well, I got everything laid out here, so without any further ado, let's get into it and see all the parts I got going into the build. Alright, so as we can see, I got all the parts laid out here. I'm going to go over things, talk about each one individually. I got my handy dandy pointer here, so I'll be pointing at things as we go along the way. I got everything grouped as kind of the different groups kind of go together. If you have any questions on why I chose anything that I did, or if I'm forgetting anything, please comment below and let me know. So from left to right here, I have the Wiseco Boost Line connecting rods. I went with the ARP 2000 connecting bolts. I did go with the 23mm heavy-duty wrist pins based on a recommendation from the tuner, and we'll go over who's going to be tuning it and utilizing what platform here in a moment. I have went with the JE pistons. These are factory bore. It's going to be factory stroke and everything. And then I have the Molly Racing rod bearings here. Next, we have a couple of IROS parts. So I went with the IROS billet main front seal. And I have the IROS billet oil pan spacer to have a little bit more oil capacity. Next thing, I have the IROS Guido reinforcement kit and the ARP upgraded bolts here for the prop. I have the Syvex Haldex controllers, the IROS Syvex joint venture there for their Haldex controller. Up here, and talking about the valve train for the head, I have the Ferrer upgraded valve intake and exhaust valves with the SuperTech valve springs and SuperTech valve spring retainers, and also the SuperTech guide rods for the valve springs. On the topic of tuning, we're going to be going with DS1. It's going to be tuned by Darren, or Double D Tuning. Getting into the transmission here, I went with the Deca DCT HD 1400 clutches. We have our 034 Motorsport billet oil tubes for the transmission, and we're going to be putting in a WaveTrack front limited slip differential. A couple things at the top here, we have our 4-bar map sensors. I have 2 here, and then we're going to be throwing in some Racing Line magnetic drain plugs for the oil and also for the I think it's either the diff or the Haldex unit, I forget, in the rear. On the topic of fueling here, we have our Silly Rabbit Motorsport SRM brushless low pressure fuel pump with controller. We have our IROS upgraded fuel lines, which are going to go from the fuel tank to the fuel rail in the front of the engine. We have our Injector Dynamics ID 1300cc injectors with the IROS plug and play harness there. And then finally, the big thing that we're going to need is upgraded hybrid turbo here. This is the Silly Rabbit Motorsports Garrett 3582R internals, and this is also the upgraded SRM exhaust manifold. This is the stainless manifold. This comes with all of the oil lines and the MAC solenoid that we're going to need. And as a reminder, on top of all of this, we already are stage 2 on E85. We have the 034 Motorsport Track Sport engine mounts, 034 Motorsport spherical dog bone mount with the upper and lower mount inserts, the 034 Motorsport intake pipe heat shielding, which is going to go above the turbo. It separates, kind of keeps that heat separated between the hot turbo and our intake piping. We have an APR carbon fiber intake inside the engine bay. We have our APR turbo inlet elbow, the 4-inch version. We have our APR front mount intercooler. We have a Eurocode throttle inlet elbow and piping, upgraded diameter there. We have the Vargas Turbo Tuning VTT upgraded intercooler piping. We have an APR catless downpipe, and then inside we have our Innovative Motorsports ECB1 ethanol gauge, so we can monitor ethanol content. In top of all these pieces for the build, it's going to be going to Redline Motorworks up in Maryland. They're going to be handling the build and everything for me. The engine work is going to be done by FFE. We're going to be doing an FFE sleeved block. Obviously, the rods and pistons and the headwork components here that I already have, in addition to the FFE APR 625 10mm head studs. And then the last thing here, which I don't actually have yet, I'm going to let Redline handle the purchase for me so I don't have to worry about the core pricing on that, is the IROS upgraded flywheel. Like I said, if there's anything else that I am forgetting parts-wise, please let me know. I think I have my bases covered here. This is also going to be handled, like I said, by Redline. So looking forward to having this done. In terms of the timeline for the build, we're looking to have the build start with the car being delivered to Redline the beginning of December.